Hopefully, a good part of the audience has at least heard the term blockchain in the past. Can I get a show of hands of how many people even know what blockchain technology means? Okay, all right, so a lot of us are going to learn today. Fantastic. So we're going to be speaking about the promise of the blockchain and how it applies to digital media advertising. So let's start. What is the blockchain, right? It's a ledger or a database, and it presently secures over $10 billion worth of value for Bitcoin around the world. Some nice features of this is that every line of code is completely open. It's been around for over 8 years, and as you can imagine, $10 billion is a pretty high incentive for hackers throughout the world. It uses some of the strongest cryptographic capabilities known to man. And let's talk about what it is and how it works. Basically, transactions are sent and added to a ledger that can never be changed. So think of it as a database or a ledger that whenever we place information in it, it's impossible to revert in any way. So initially, we have a block. And a block, all it is an envelope. It's an envelope, it's a digital envelope of transactions. So when we have a transaction and we send it from one computer or device to another or to an individual, it simply gets added to a block. And over time, the block fills, and a hash of that block is created. That hash is added to a subsequent block, which refers back to the previous block, creating the first node of the chain, the first two nodes of the chain, and so on and so on and so forth. And now we have, through cryptography, a ledger of information through transactions that is immutable. Transactions that are sent to this ledger are verified and created by computers all over the world. They're known as miners and full nodes. And this network is quite extensive. A little shameless plug here. As mentioned, I'm the CEO of Blockchain of Things. Blockchain of Things has a layer to make it very, very easy for any company to take advantage of this technology. It's a web services layer to make it very simple for us to all use the powers of this game-changing technology. But why blockchain for advertising? Let's go through some of the better properties of the blockchain and how it applies to advertising. Because if you've heard of blockchain technology, you probably heard it in the context of the financial arena. Wall Street is very excited about it. They say it's game-changing, but I also believe it's game-changing for the ad industry. It has a global footprint. It's a worldwide ledger of information that sits on every corner of the planet. My laptop has the blockchain. Probably dozens of individuals in this hotel have the blockchain. So now you have information all over the world as close as possible to the individual that you want to deliver the information to. As mentioned, it's immutable. Even if you have the full blockchain on your computer, there's no way or no how that you can modify it and change it. And believe you me, there's plenty of hackers and groups throughout the world who would love to be able to do it and have been attempting to do it for 8 years with no success. It gives you the ability to create what's now referred to as digital assets. And what are digital assets? They're just digital tokens that I could send to one individual or another individual. I can map these digital tokens to anything. So now let's imagine an ad mapped to this digital token. I could, with one transaction, generate 100 million tokens or 1 billion tokens, and then use those tokens mapped to different ads throughout the world. As mentioned, it's highly secure. It uses proven cryptographic capabilities, and it's proven itself to be hacker-proof. One of the more interesting qualities is the fact that it's decentralized, and there's no need for intermediary trust. We call this disintermediation. So now we can transact directly with individuals with no one in between. So now you can imagine why certain industries and sectors start to become very interested in this technology, especially if you understand that this technology is coming and your business is being a middleman. Transparency. When it comes to fraud and when it comes to surfacing information, nothing has proven as effective as the blockchain from a transparency perspective. Everybody can view the information on the blockchain. We talked about its global footprint. I thought I'd put up a map to talk about the global presence. The last report I read, which was, I think towards the end of last year, they estimated the Bitcoin network to be at 550 times the size of Google's technology footprint. So let me repeat that, 550 times the size of Google. So it provides scale and strength because the blockchain is a globally replicated ledger. Any change that exists or transaction that occurs on my system gets replicated through a peer network across everybody's system. And all of the computers throughout the world come to consensus to ensure that all the data and the integrity is the same. We have end-to-end redundancy, 100% fault tolerance, an unmatched service level, and we disintermediate trust. So change is coming. And it's coming to this industry also. You may not know it, you may not be aware of it, but it's happening under your nose, and it's been happening for over 16 months. Let's talk about it through micropayments. Today, if you're a publisher and you know that you have a large audience and you understand that that large audience can give you a dime or 5 cents or 15 cents for your content, you have no way of collecting that money. Why? Because credit cards charge base fees of 10, 15 cents. So even charging 30 or 40 cents doesn't become feasible. With cryptocurrency, you can do that. Through disintermediation, right? Now, a content creator can get paid directly for creating his or her content. Consumers can be paid directly for participation. There's reduction in friction and inclusion, right? We take for granted, because we live in the Western world, that 1/3 of the world is unbanked. 1/3 of the world. They have computers, they all have cell phones, they're all on the internet, they can all receive ads, but they can't participate because they don't have a bank account. So let's think about that. Some networks, right, that pay you for ad placement have minimum thresholds of $100. They also have thresholds of filling out paperwork for know your customer rules. We call KYC, right? Those minimum thresholds are barriers to entry. Now imagine anyone in a sub-Saharan country or somewhere that doesn't have a bank account can get a digital wallet and start doing business. Start getting involved with bidding. Start getting involved with creating content and getting paid for it. And through reduction in fraud, something near and dear to my heart. The IAB has had forethought on this, and we've been speaking at lengths about it. It can add legitimacy for all actors across the ad chain and for all ads run, bought, and processed. So when I say that this is coming, that's not really the reality. It's already here. So you can go and get an account on ChangeTip. Every time I post something really cool on Reddit, people buy me a beer. That's been happening to me for over 3 years. Bitwall. You want a paywall to allow someone to pay you in micro increments? It exists today. BitTeaser. What's BitTeaser? It allows you to do paid ads on your blog, on wherever you want. And another little known company, Blockchain of Things, is involved with ad fraud. Now, there are many companies, and I've only listed 4, and I'm not advocating any of them but Blockchain of Things, but of course. But, however, there are many more, right? So when I say it's coming, it's really not coming. It's under your nose. It's here. Look into it. Take advantage of it, because it's going to transform many industries, even your own, not just the finance. So let's talk a little bit about ad fraud. Legitimacy for all actors across the ad chain. What can we do with this? We can create verifiable identities, right? Essentially, that's what the blockchain does. It creates an identity for a digital token that I can send. I can link that identity to inventory. Then I can create and verify the relationship across an ad chain of custody. And then I can track the custody across that ad spend. Legitimacy for all ads run, bought, and processed. Let's talk a little bit about that. We can associate ad units to blockchain assets. Remember I said that with one transaction I can create 1 billion assets, call it whatever I want. I can call it an Andre token, or I can call it ad XYZ, right? I can associate that. Once I associate that, I can authenticate that unit prior to display for impressions. And we're doing this verifiably, completely open and transparent, and anyone who has a little bit of knowledge in a spreadsheet can verify this, whether they're in Antarctica or sitting in their apartment in Manhattan. And then we have a transparent history for easy pattern identification for fraud that lives there forever as proof. So blockchains provide transparency, traceability, makes it easy for anyone to verify, exposing fraud. Once again, my name's Andre de Castro. I'm the founder and CEO of Blockchain of Things. Contact me. I'll be here a little bit later if you want to learn more how we're helping the ad industry use this technology. Okay. All right.
Okay. I have so many questions for him. I have to guide my own direction on this one, so.
Uh-oh.
Can you describe for the room the difference between Bitcoin and blockchain? Now that we've covered blockchain, can you help them understand how they're related?
Absolutely. Okay. So the blockchain is the underlying technology for Bitcoin itself. Bitcoin was the first known cryptocurrency, allowing this disintermediation of trust allowing an individual to send money between each other without any middleman, right? Prior to that, all we had were middlemen like PayPal and those. So one is the ledger and the technology. The other one is the first application built on top of that ledger and technology.
And Ethereum, what is that?
So Ethereum is a project that was built from the ground up, and Ethereum had this concept of doing something called the smart contract. It's basically an autonomous program. So what Ethereum did was they borrowed some of the more interesting aspects of the Bitcoin technology, applied it to their own technology, and built the technology from the ground up. They also have a blockchain. It works a little bit different. It's yet to be proven in any way with industries, right? So the difference is one is very, very mature and proven and carries over $10 billion worth of value. The other one is new in more of an experimental phase, but we do have high hopes for it.
Great. Somebody asked me today about the DAO hack on Ethereum in this room.
Okay.
And so just to give you some background, there was a hack on Ethereum. They're saying hack is a very loose term. And the market has been discussing, and a few of you today have asked me about that. So can we cover that briefly, explaining what it is? And
yeah, so there's this idea of a digital autonomous organization, and that would be a company that runs on its own. And the minute you can create a computer that lives everywhere, right, or a program that lives everywhere that can't be taken down, you can imagine you can program something that would allow you to cause things to happen autonomously with no control of any human, because it lives in this massive network that keeps growing and growing and growing. Right. Well, the DAO did that for a trust-like mechanism, right? The idea was that you would send money to the DAO will hold on to it, and you would get DAO tokens. And these tokens would allow you to vote on how that money would be spent, right? So it was the first effort to transform how funding would happen. And initially, it was very, very successful. And it was successful, don't quote me here, but I think in a matter of a month or two, it raised about $160 million. And then, because it was on the Ethereum platform and how software is, someone found a bug in a problem and it was hacked. But, you know, that's typical of new software and the maturity of software.
Right. The cool part about that is it was an autonomous company, which means it was peopleless, right?
Exactly.
So, you know, companies that don't have people are an interesting concept. And we were talking about the efficacy of the blockchain technology and then subsequently Bitcoin. And I was asking Andre backstage earlier about Silk Road. Who knows what Silk Road is? Raise your hand. Lots of people. Good. So basically, it was a black market site to buy drugs and other things. And it was taken down by the FBI and other government agencies. And subsequently, there was an issue, and I'll let you fill in the blanks as to what happened next.
Well, after these FBI agents took down the Silk Road, they thought, well, we have access to the private keys of a lot of these accounts. So they decided to divert money and Bitcoins to themselves, right? Although they're pretty smart guys, they're not that smart, because ultimately the blockchain is a traceable ledger. Everything that happens on the blockchain can be traced. We call it pseudo-anonymous, meaning that it's like a Swiss numbered account. You may not know who owns it, but if you happen to send me money from that account and you expose yourself, then I know who owns it, right? So it's pseudo-anonymous. And they were able to trace them, and they were caught for stealing.
Right. So it's an interesting time in our world. I actually want to open up for questions now, because I'm sure there are some. So put the lights up and see if anybody has a question. Oh, I see him running. There we go.
Arthur Schickman, 33 across.
Hi.
It's an interesting point you made about tracing the tokens. I'm wondering about the rise of Zcash and how will you be able to combat fraud with untraceable transactions?
Right. Well, that's a good question. So there's this whole effort around this space to innovate on technology, right? And one of the more recent efforts is to provide fungibility for these crypto tokens so they can't be traced, right? And I think that can't be traced or making yourself traceable are two separate things. Zcash is an effort. Now, we've had efforts like that in the past. Darkcoin and Dash were similar efforts. They haven't gone too far, so you could choose to possibly use that blockchain for something, but typically you're going to choose what's mature and what has a global footprint. And today, the only one we can say with certainty is Bitcoin. I hope that answered your question. Okay.
Any other questions? Is anybody using any blockchain technology in their companies today? Oh, I see a hand. I'm going to ask you a question now. I'm going to give you the microphone. What are you doing? Oh.
It's blockchain coupled with artificial intelligence and augmented reality focused on emergency response.
Oh, well, that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, so the blockchains for the audit trail when it comes to insurance and reinsurance.
Oh, interesting.
Interesting.
So he said that he's using the blockchain for audit trails for insurance and reinsurance.
Yes.
In an application, which is, I would say, a perfect use for the blockchain from a traceability perspective, right? Which I think that some of the low-hanging fruit for the ad industry could be fraud.
Yeah, I agree. And you're doing augmented reality?
Yes, so that would be during the operations segment, say, because right now, so in New York, if you're a firefighter, you don't actually have a floor plan.
Right.
You enter a building. And then that's the augmented reality. That would be a way of sort of visualizing where the different exits are, and then also have real-time data coming in.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to find you at the drinks. That's super interesting.
I think we have another question.
Oh, good.
Hi, Juliette Riviera Tag. You mentioned that Bitcoin is the leading currency for that type of blockchain technology, but there are others that are coming, even though they're not as widespread, like Zcash, Darkcoin, or others. How will we manage the standardization of such a currency? For it to be powerful and have a real impact, we should have one currency, right? So how will we manage that process?
Well, I think that that depends on perspective, right? Because in actuality, we call it a currency, but it's a digital token. It only becomes a currency once you can have a liquidity event. So what do I mean by that? There are people duplicating the Bitcoin code base and calling them, reward tickets or points, and using it to give incentive points like airline miles, right? So it really depends on how and what you label it. But ultimately, if you do want to use it as a currency, as a way to pay for something, you're probably going to look at the more mature blockchain that can actually be traded up against traditional fiat currencies in worldwide markets. And Bitcoin is exactly that. I hope that answered your question. Okay.
I see a hand.
Sorry, one more. You mentioned the cost-cutting advantages of migrating to the blockchain or the blockchain of things. Can you estimate maybe a percentage of how much in operating costs we could potentially save by switching to this platform?
Well, that's a really good question. I don't know that I can quantify what the operating costs would be to switch. It would have to be on a use case basis, right? I do know that in many industries, let me give you a couple for instance. Let's talk about home titles or transacting on the stock market. So the NASDAQ has a company called T0, and they're using the technology, and their slogan is, "The trade is the settlement." So because a Bitcoin transaction gets logged onto the ledger, it's the record of the settlement. Well, most people don't know this, but when you buy stock, sometimes it takes months to settle. I was shown a 500-page book of all of the details that occurs for settlement. Another example is homes. When you purchase a home, and this occurs a lot, and I hear that the Illinois, it happens more so than in any place, an individual will sell a home and then sell a home again, and then sell that same home a third time. And why does that happen? The title insurance companies don't know that the home has been sold, and the individual will go to several title insurance companies because it takes time to record the mortgage at the county clerk's office, right? So now imagine that the sale is the recording, right? So not only can I sell, but by virtue of selling, I'm recording the information onto this ledger. So if we talk about cost savings from a settlement perspective or cost savings from a recording perspective and things like that, it could be substantial. I don't know that I can quantify it for a generalized use case.
Looking around. Any more questions? Okay. This was super interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
As
Thank
always.
you.
All right.
Yeah.